I've done another baking experiment. I wanted to see how the bread would react to substituting out all the water in the recipe for 100% milk. So we can compare them side by side. I'm making one of my regular loaves with water and the other one with whole milk. Everything else is staying exactly the same. When you add milk to bread or even eggs or butter, it becomes an enriched dough because it has a higher fat content. So this should result in a softer texture and a richer flavour. And I found it so interesting to see how the dough reacted just even during the proving. The top bowl here is the milk bread. There's a clear difference in the structure of the bubbles and the stickiness of the bread. The milk bread left no residue on my hands compared to the water bread, which made a mess. This is to do with how well the liquid used hydrates the flour. When I came to tip it out of the bowl, the water bread always pours out quite nicely, whereas the milk bread felt stiffer and needed more help. The rise on both doughs were exactly the same, but the bubbles in the milk bread were much smaller and more consistent. The main difference I was noticing was that handling the milk bread was much easier because it was so much less sticky. After shaping and a second proof for 2 hours, you can see the difference in the shape of how the dough is spread. The dough made with water on the right has an uneven round shape compared to the milk dough, which is a lovely even circle. This is all down to the proteins in the milk, which regulate the size of the bubbles formed. One other thing I noticed on the milk bread was that it formed a kind of skin. That meant that I could score it and it would hold the score. Even though they have the same amount of liquid, the water will hydrate the flour much more than the milk because milk contains other compounds like fats and proteins which don't hydrate. In this recipe, the scoring is purely aesthetic and I'm very happy how it turned out. The water dough is so much stretchier and has far more bubbles than the milk dough, but because of the high hydration, it is sticky, which means it's difficult to handle. Do not go in with fear though, because the bread can sense fear. Go in with confidence and move that bread around as if you know exactly what you're doing. The water dough will not hold a score, it just cracks wherever it wants to. And I put tin foil over to stop it from going too dark. And here are the results, just listen to this. I will never ever get tired of that sound. They both smelled incredible. The milk bread perhaps a tiny bit sweeter. It also had a harder crust and a deeper colour, which is down to the sugars in the milk. And now to cut them open. The water bread had quite a variety of different sized bubble holes compared to the milk bread, which as expected had many more consistent sized bubbles. And when you put them side by side, you can also see a difference in the colour. The milk bread is a more creamy yellow and texturally much like a brioche. I also noticed the milk bread was slightly more crumbly to cut. But now for the all important taste test. I toasted up some of the bread to go with the butternut squash and carrot soup I made with vegetables from the garden. Yes, it was delicious, but could I tell you which one was which if I had my eyes closed? Probably not. Going forwards, I'm not sure how often I will make this milk bread. The long proving time of the bread means it needs to sit at room temperature for at least 18 hours, and because it's a dairy product, I'm not too comfortable with that. But I'd love to know what you think, so let me know in the comments.